Muslims believe that God was alone when He created the universe. Wahhabis believe that God had never been alone. God never existed unless He had a company of His creation, meaning that each individual of God's creation is preceded by another individual ad infinitum. Although Wahhabis believe that each individual is not pre-eternal, the series of those individuals is pre-eternal. To better understand this pre-eternal series of individuals, I'm gonna leave you in a good hand.
Assalamu alaikum. Let's start with an example of the pre-eternal series of individuals. Victoria was preceded by William. William was preceded by his ancestors. His ancestors were preceded by Adam. Adam by clay. Clay by soil, water, and fire. The soil, water, and fire by another form of existence. Let's call it Existent 1. Existent 1 was preceded by Existent 2. 2 by 3, 3 by 4, 4 by 5, endlessly. Or to be more accurate, beginninglessly. This is the beginningless series of individuals, known in Arabic as Hawadith la Awwal Laha.
Beginningless? Each individual in your example had a beginning. How come you say beginningless?
Beginningless refers to the series of individuals, not to each individual. The series has no mabda, no starting point.
Okay, and Hawadith is the plural of hadith. It means a matter or a property of a matter that occurred after being non-existent.
Exactly. Let's take water as an example of matter. Water is hadith, and its properties like physical state, color, density, taste are hawadith too.
Wonderful. But a beginningless series of individuals indicates that God had never been alone, because God is pre-eternal, and the series, allegedly, is pre-eternal as well. Correct?
Correct.
Correct? Is this a Sunni belief?
No. It clashes with the Quran. God says, Huwal Awwal. How would God be the first if this series of individuals is beginningless? It clashes with the Sunnah, with Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam's clear statement, كان الله ولم يكن شيء غيره. There was God and nothing else but Him. It clashes with the earliest authorities of Islam like Imam Tahawi al-Hanafi says in his seminal book of Aqidah known as Tahawiyya,
thus, he was truly the creator before originating them.
Imam al-Bakhawi al-Shafi'i, known as the reviver of the Sunnah, says,
it must be held that Allah, glory to His name, is beginningless with all His names and His attributes. No contingent name nor contingent attribute shall be ascribed to Him. Allah was a creator without anything created. He was a sustainer without anything sustained, and an owner without anything owned. He is the last.
Abu Ya'la al-Farra, the most supreme Hanbali Imam of his time, says in his book Al-Mu'tamad,
contingent individuals have a start at which they were begun, on the contrary to the belief of the apostates.
Ibn Hazm took it a step further in declaring the holder of such doctrine to be kafir, apostate, because it contradicts the consensus of the scholars. Ibn Hazm says,
they have agreed that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one with no partners, is the creator of everything other than Him. And He subhanahu wa ta'ala had beginninglessly been alone with nothing other than Him with Him. Then He created all things as He willed, and that the nafs is created, the throne is created, and the whole universe is created.
In addition to those masters of hadith and jurisprudence, Al-Juwayni, the Imam of the two holy cities, says,
if an apostate said, if proving post-eternal series of contingent individuals is plausible, then proving pre-eternal series of contingent individual is plausible.
Wow. These citations undermine Hawadith la Awwal Laha. Apart from the solid evidence that you've presented, I'm quite convinced that this notion lacks rationality. Hear me out. If Saladin, who lived 8 centuries ago, was preceded by an infinite series of individuals, and I, Cookie, was also preceded by another infinite series of individuals, then Saladin's infinity must be smaller.
Wait a minute. Infinity can't be smaller. Numbers can be smaller. Not infinity. Infinity is not a number, but rather a concept.
Exactly. This is what I wanted to say.
Though Muslims believe in infinity? In the everlastingness of paradise and hellfire?
There is a difference.
What's the difference?
You are confusing actual infinity that Wahhabis claim to have occurred with potential infinity that is anticipated to occur, such as Muslims' belief in the afterlife. This is the difference between the past and the future. One has come and the other is still to come. One has happened and the other is awaited.
Right. Due to this fundamental difference, we can employ analogy, qiyas. We cannot draw upon our belief in future infinity to justify belief in past infinity.
This is really strange. If this doctrine opposes the Quran, the Sunnah, and the doctrines established by Muslim scholars, namely the scholars of Hadith throughout Islam, then why did Ibn Taymiyyah innovate it? And why do Wahhabis take it at face value?
Hawadith la Awwal Laha is a foundation for the Tashbih doctrine that Ibn Taymiyyah has established and Wahhabis have confirmed with.
Tashbih? You mean attributing human-like qualities to Allah? But how?
If I explain how, we will go off topic, but we will explain this in a future video.
How did he manage to persuade ordinary people to believe in Hawadith la Awwal Laha?
Trying to conceal the ugliness of this notion, Ibn Taymiyyah argued that if God has not been creating and will not be creating at all times, then he must be mu'attal.
Mu'attal?
Inactive.
Inactive?
They say that inactivity is a defect that God must be free from.
A defect?
This is what they say.
This is no defect. This is God's will not to create. If he wills to create, he creates. If he wills not to create, he won't. This is Allah's attribute of will. فَعَالٌ لِمَا يُرِيدُ وَرَبُّكَ يَخْلُقُ مَا يَشَاءُ وَيَخْتَارُ.
Yeah, I know. Wahhabis call it a defect though.
I'm pretty sure that Wahhabis had labeled free will as inactivity to intimidate people, coercing them into adhering into Hawadith la Awwal Laha. It is one of their cheap tricks.
Absolutely. No one can describe God as mu'attal for willing not to create. This is manipulation of language.
Unfortunately, Wahhabis again have given weight to Ibn Taymiyyah's hermeneutics over the Quran. فَعَالٌ لِمَا يُرِيدُ. Over the Hadith. كان الله ولم يكن شيء غيره. And even over Hanbali literature. Abu Ya'la al-Farra said in Mukhtasar al-Mu'tamad,
To their statement that God has ever been creating, if they meant the act of creating, then this leads to the pre-eternality of the universe.
Whoa! This is a resounding Hanbali no to Wahhabis.
You know, Handy, I've been thinking, if God, according to Wahhabis, must be creating at all times, does that mean that God cannot choose to terminate the universe?
According to them, if he does, he will be mu'attal, inactive. Therefore, he cannot.
Wow.
It occurred to me that if Wahhabis insist that God cannot be called the creator without the presence of creation, then why would they accept to call God Ba'ath without Ba'ath? Why would they accept to call him the resurrector while the day of resurrection has not come yet?
This is a well-made argument, Handy. But is it linguistically correct? I mean, to call God the creator without creation. Do Wahhabis have a point here?
Can we not call a Ferrari fast till we test drive it? Can we not call a butcher's knife sharp till we try it?
Yeah, you are right. The other day, I went to buy a dress, and the saleswoman told me that this dress is satir. It's covering. The dress wasn't even on me. It was still hanging on the shelf.
See?
Can you cite some Wahhabis defending this ajib belief?
You can simply search for Hawadith la Awwal Laha online, and you will be showered with Wahhabi citations on the topic. I'm gonna do it for the English audience though. Let's start with Ibn Taymiyyah, Wahhabi's exclusive interpreter of the Quran and Sunnah. Ibn Taymiyyah says,
If it is assumed that its genus is still with him, then this genus is not refuted by the Sharia nor the intellect, but rather it is of his perfection.
As for Wahhabis, listen to these citations. Ibn Uthaymeen says,
خلاصة هذا الباب كله أن مذهب أهل السنة والجماعة أن الله تعالى لم يزل ولا يزال فعالا. لم يزل ولا يزال فعالا. وهذا يستلزم التسلسل في الماضي كما يستلزم التسلسل في المستقبل. لكن الشيخ الإسلام رحمه الله وجماعة من أهل العلم قالوا نحن نقول بالإمكان بل بوجوب أن الله لم يزل ولا يزال فعالا.
Ibn Baz says,
الحوادث ليس لها أول، بل لم يزل ربنا يخلق ما يشاء، لم يزل يفعل. فإذا حددنا أول بقي ما قبل الأول معطل لم يفعل شيئا.
Al-Fawzan says,
ولهذا يعيبون على شيخ الإسلام أنه يقول بتسلسل الحوادث في الماضي. نعم، تسلسل الحوادث في الماضي ليس هو الحق.
You know, Handy, I would like to commend Albani for rejecting this doctrine of Ibn Taymiyyah and for not following him blindly, unlike the overwhelming majority of Wahhabis.
لذلك نقف عند قول عليه السلام: أول ما خلق الله القلم، فهو أول مخلوق. فإذا كان هو أول مخلوق فإذا ليس قبله مخلوق. فلذلك ندع هذا الرأي لابن تيمية ولا نتبعه فيه.
That was very brave of him. I pray for Wahhabis to overcome all these heresies and adhere to the Quran, the Sunnah, the consensus of the Ummah. Ameen.
Ameen.